thank you for sitting down with me
Thanks.
today, Josh. I've come all the way from Cardiff because I'm such a big fan.
Love Cardiff.
And I have to give a shout out to the film you did, Bridgend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing.
Blast from the Past.
Doing it with Jeppe, was it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, doing this sort of Scandinavian film, making like South Wales feel very, Scandinavian. Moody.
And Scandi, yeah.
And it brought like a really sort of, important issue in those small towns to the big screen.
Yeah, I don't know whether we tackled it in the correct way with hindsight, but I think the intentions were good.
Yeah.
Like, I think the intention, it was a genuine attempt at trying to, from Jeppe, was a genuine attempt to try and understand what was happening there at the time.
Yeah,
but
the cinematography as well was beautiful.
Oh,
have
so
to
good.
admire that, definitely. So let's talk about your film, La Chimera, this is the second time I've seen it. Absolutely loved it. I think there's definitely some details you can pick up on, different perspectives. You're looking at different characters differently through it on the second watch. And I know you've sort of touched upon this already, but I know you're an avid photographer when you're not acting.
Yeah, sometimes.
And this film itself was shot on 35 and 16. And obviously you've done challenges recently, also shot on 35. Yeah. So how does your approach, when you know you've got limited stock, how does that sort of change your process?
Well, surprisingly not as much as you think. And I think that's, both these films, this is the first time I'd worked on film. So, actually, that's not true. I made a short film with Joanna Coates, who I then made Hide and Seek with. But that was just a short film, and that was, so it's very different. But this was truly the first time I shot on film. And so I had these ideas and impressions that it would be like, you'd hear the tick, tick, tick of the camp, which you do hear sometimes, and that you'd feel anxious about how much it's costing. But actually, it didn't feel like that at all. And I think it's just because, Alice's films for me were like, and actually this is true of Luca as well, that like you feel like you have to shoot on film. They have to be shot on film. And I guess with La Chimera, it's like, it feels like we're talking about objects and artifacts, and her films feel, and set in the 80s, and her films feel like artifacts. When I saw Lazaro for the first time, I was like, how is this a new film? This feels like ancient. And it lends itself to her eye. So I think I was anxious at first, but then you really just forget and you carry on.
Do you see yourself going behind the camera at any point with your love of photography?
No, honestly, no.
Stick in front of it.
Yeah, I'm happy in front of it. Maybe, I there was a period where, like, and truly the photography thing, like, it's just
a hobby.
It's just a hobby, and I really enjoy it, like, but I don't do it enough, and I always forget to take my camera places, and right now I'm into embroidery, and that's my new thing, which I've been enjoying a lot.
There's gardening.
Gardening I'm loving, embroidery, ceramics, making pots will always be my number one, but photography is just in the mix. It's fun.
It's like it's evergreen. It's always going to be there.
Particularly if you shoot on black and white.
Yeah,
everything looks good.
It does, and it's cheaper.
Bit of grain, bit of black and white, you're grand.
Exactly. So obviously people know you from Netflix's The Crown, playing Prince Charles, obviously now King Charles. So I was curious to know if you learned anything by studying someone who is real and how you sort of brought that forward into fictional characters you've played.
Well, in some ways, it was the other way around. It's like, when I tackled Charles, it was like, all I knew was fictional characters, albeit Lawrence Durrell in the Durrells, it was a real person, but it was kind of, because of Gerald Durrell's books, they sort of feel like fiction. But truthfully, it was like, I always remember, and I'm sorry, because this is probably in every interview I ever did for The Crown, but I always thought, like, what was the best examples of biopics? Because I often think they're kind of rubbish. And more often than not, I think the pitfall they have, there's lots of really good ones, by the way. Sorry, I'm not dissing all biopics, but some of the pitfalls I found as an audience member is that you're like, particularly if it's someone you loved, you're like, that's not how I saw them.
Yes.
And that's because it's purely interpretive. We all have very different response. And anyway, so the Todd Haynes Bob Dylan film, I'm not there, or I'm still there. I'm not there. Yeah, getting nods from the Watershed team. I'm Not There was like such a great example of a biopic that works successfully for me, because as a Dylan fan, I was like, we don't know who Dylan is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he's mysterious, and that's what I love about him, is that he's on the one hand a poet, on the other hand a political figure. He's the electric guitar version of Dylan, there's the acoustic guitar version of Dylan, there's the movie star version of Dylan. And it's like, rather than try and tell the story of Dylan, which you can look up on Wikipedia, what can we give you that you don't know, and that no one knows, and that we're questioning? And so with Charles, it was actually the other way around. It was like, how do I make this real person a fictional person and a character, and approach it like I would any other character?
Yeah.
So that's all I did with that, really.
Oh, amazing. And obviously you've mentioned in many interviews about this film that you're a big fan of Alice's work, and you've just worked with Luca, so a lot of Italian directors, and obviously you're picking up on some Italian. So how does speaking the director's language improve your relationship with them on set? Do you get notes in Italian that can't translate?
I definitely don't. And very fortunately, both Luca and Alice speak very good English. Okay. So I was very fortunate with that, because I don't think I could have taken complex notes from either Luca or Alice on either of those movies in Italian. But the Italian thing is kind of by chance, I think. Obviously, I was an admirer of Luca's before, and I'm a great admirer of Alice's, and it just so happened they came together at the same time. It was, I guess it's my Italian year.
Do you see yourself moving towards sort of European cinema? Has it got a special place?
It's always had a special place, so that will always be true for me. I don't know. I think it's like, I remember seeing, since we're at the Watershed, I've seen so many of my favourite movie experiences were at this cinema, and one of them was I saw Two Lovers on the Bridge, the Leos Carax film.
I've seen it. It's
so fantastic. And I remember seeing that, and I was like, I only want to work with Leos Carax. I think it's just naturally, that's my love of cinema comes a lot from those filmmakers.
Oh, amazing. And obviously the characters in this feel so three-dimensional, they feel lived in. Obviously you were saying how you lived there in two parts and you sort of cohabited with the rest of the crew. How does that sort of, improve your experience when it comes to filmmaking, living and breathing with the people you're making it with?
Yeah, it definitely helps. I mean, this is like, this is kind of an extraordinary experience, and not common, in the sense that we're shooting in a town where a lot of the cast were living and working.
Yeah.
And so you are inevitably, I found myself in their environments, and they were extremely hospitable and welcoming into their homes and cooking. And but also Alice has this element when she's in her filmmaking where, we'd like finish a day of work and we'd all be sat around an open fire cooking for each other. So that was just that. I would say that's down to Alice, but it is really important. I think making movies is like being in a traveling circus, and you're away from home a lot of the time. Yeah. It's the thing I find hardest about being an actor, is like, I miss my family, I miss my home, my garden, my routine. I miss all those things. So you kind of make your own family with whoever you're making the movie with, and that's inevitable. It's just a little easier on something like La Chimera, because you're in a town where people live their lives, so you just slot in. Yeah,
and so you said earlier how some people have other jobs, day to day, and they bring that back on set, and I just think that's so special.
Yeah, for sure.
To the sort of more corporate kind of.
Yeah, I think it's a really rare thing. It's like getting to. I mean, it's also cool to get to work with Zendaya and Mike Feist and Olivia Colman and whoever else you're working with, but it's particularly special to get to be working with the best plumber in Bolsena, self-proclaimed, or whatever it is. It's nice to. Pasolini always said, he was like filmmaker of the people, and so was Rossellini. They were filmmakers of the people, and it was like, we're telling people stories. We should get the people to help tell them.
Yeah, almost documentary.
Almost documentary, yeah. And what's interesting is it kind of elevates something. It makes it almost, it's not natural realism. You know, Alice is described as like the magical realist director. So it doesn't, it feels theatrical, but feels real as well. It's really cool.
Wow, brilliant. I was going to ask you one more question, Josh. So especially on that second watch, seeing it today, you could just really tell that this was made by a lot of female filmmakers, a lot of actors on screen. You're surrounded by a lot of female characters. Yeah. How was that dynamic on set, and how did that sort of, you know, say a lot about Arthur's character sort of through the journey of this film being very female sort of centric? Yeah,
we were very clear from the off that we wanted him to be surrounded by women. Because I think he... You know, it's a very macho... Italy in the 80s was a very macho place. And I think Arthur, during the course of this film, is finding himself... He's questioning everything about society and the way that people are living. And that includes the way he's living, the way he treats the land and history and people's property, and he has this kind of torn feeling about Beniamina, and she's in one place and then Italia's somewhere else. And also the women in his life are the strong people.
Definitely.
You know, they're the beacons of strength to him. You know, all the boys are crying over a stone head that Arthur throws over a boat. And then you've got, you know, whether it's Alba Rohrwacher playing oh God, I've forgotten the name now, but her character, or Carol Duarte playing Italia. Italia's this strong woman who creates a home for all the women in the community, and you know, Isabella Rossellini, Flora. You know, she's staying strong. She's choosing to believe her daughters, even though she perhaps knows she doesn't.
Part, I think she knows,
I think she sort of knows. But she's like, why shouldn't I believe that she's still out there? You know, these are like strong, beautiful, complex characters that should exist anyway, but unfortunately they don't. And but Alice writes them very well.
Yeah, I thought it was beautiful, and it's really refreshing to see.
I think so.
But thank you for sitting down with me today,
Thanks
Josh.
very much.
It's been really insightful and great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.